This is the Besotted Pride of West London podcast, and Happy New Year to you. It's New Year's Day. We've got a big game tomorrow. Liverpool are coming down to New Griffin Park, and I'm sitting here after having a little bit too much Christmas cheer. We were in Hackney Wick till quite late on Friday night, I think it was, after the West Ham game. Obviously, a bit of celebration was had there as we beat the West Ham 2-0. But then, like I said to you, a few drinks was had there. Then we've had the New Year's Eve, and then now we're focusing on the Liverpool game. And like I said to you, short gap between the West Ham game and the Liverpool game. So we haven't done a full podcast. We're going to do one of our infamous mini pods today. We get one of our chums on the other end of the line just to give us the lowdown. And I've got Neil from the Anfield Wrap on the line. Neil, how are you doing?
Very well indeed, Billy. Always good to speak to Besotted. Always a pleasure, never a chore.
Yeah, always good to chat to you as well, man. So listen, how's your New Year? First of all, how's your Christmas festivities, your celebrations? How is it?
All good, yeah. I mean, there's something, even though it was a dreadful game of football, there's something marvellous about a game on a Friday night between Christmas and New Year. 8 o'clock kickoff, absolutely glorious for Anfield. I think everyone had a big afternoon, and most definitely a big evening was had on the 30th. That somewhat, put a bit of a undermine me 31st, but then I'm never a big one for New Year anyway. And I was at Villa Park on Boxing Day, so I feel like I've ticked some serious boxes there, and it's just great to have the football back. Liverpool's obviously a little bit different to the rest of the country where the all international stuff's concerned. So, some people had an eye on the World Cup. So a lot of people enjoyed it, and I hope they did if they got the opportunity to do it. But it feels as though it's good to have the real business back, and I've really enjoyed Villa Park, and I thought Liverpool were good first half, especially less so against Leicester. But then we all got to go out until 4 a.m. So it's one of them.
Yeah, that's it. And my mate Adam, like I said to you, from Baltimore, he gives you the big thumbs up as well, because you made him and his wife's evening very, very, very happy, because they made it down to Anfield as well. They didn't know they were going to get a ticket, but last minute you came up trumps for them, so he appreciates that very much. And he's on the plane now, kind. On the way back to Baltimore, and I'm sure he's going to send you lots of Baltimore big ups, like, you know what I'm saying. But don't worry, I don't think he's converted to Liverpool. I think we got him. I think he came down to Brentford a bit earlier, so he's fully on B's, as they say. You got
him first.
Yes, that's right. He got in first. But listen, it almost wasn't a happy New Year for you, because you were 1-0 down to Leicester, and if it wasn't for a couple of own goals, you could have been sort of kind of crying in your soup, couldn't you?
It was certainly for the first 35 minutes, it was amongst the worst I've seen Liverpool play in a decade. It really was. They were absolutely dreadful. There's numerous bad performances from some senior players. The captain Henderson was dreadful, especially for the first hour as a whole. Joel Matip doesn't play at all well. Andy Robertson doesn't play at all well. The goalkeeper's distribution. This is the man who's reputed to be the best goalkeeper in the world. I think he is the best goalkeeper in the world. His distribution was absolutely awful. Liverpool were really, really bad, and there's a couple of mitigating circumstances, and there's a couple of good performances in amongst all of there. But Liverpool were poor, really poor, and it was a dog of a game. And then we get unbelievably fortunate with 2 own goals from one player. I think there's a couple of reasons for his decision making that leads to those own goals. Well, I think there's one reason, and his name is Darwin Núñez. But I think that ultimately, we do get very, very fortunate. And then the second half, the one thing, the credit I give Liverpool, even though it's not as though they start playing football from the gods or anything in the second half, the credit I give them, though, is that Leicester are restricted to very, very few chances. And this was the sort of game, even after the gifts from Leicester, back in October, we'd have found some sort of way to hand that back to the opposition. We were very good at gifts at the minute, this Liverpool side, or we were, and I think we've got better and better. So I think that we still... 3 months ago, I think we possibly still would have found a way to not win that game. So the one thing that the credit that has to be given to the side, the manager, everyone else, is that Leicester do give us the 2 gifts, but we don't give them one in return, and we see it out. We get the 3 points, and it means we're in a tidy run of league form all of a sudden, which might come as a minor shock given our travails and the fact that we're not on the table where we should be. But Liverpool have got themselves a decent set of results now over 10-12 games, which is obviously good from our point of view, and we do need to keep it going.
I mean, just quickly talking about Leicester, because we spoke a bit earlier in the season and we were talking about the teams who are going to be at the top and the teams who are going to be down the bottom, and the team that you actually picked out straight away was Leicester, because you said, look, as far as you're concerned, you just can't see them doing the business because they haven't they didn't have the quality of players and stuff. But seeing them play then, I know you beat them, are you still the same about Leicester? Because they're still, they're still sort of mid-table-ish, aren't they?
The funny thing with Leicester is I just think it now doesn't look like it's fun for anyone, and they've stopped feeling as though they're going sort of positive force moving forward. The line I keep using is the old Woody Allen line that a relationship's like a shark. It has to keep moving forward or it dies, and what we've got on our hands here is a dead shark. And I don't think Leicester are going to go down, but I think there's an element where Leicester, post-FA Cup win, they've just been a little bit of a dead shark. 2 seasons back-to-back coming 5th, not really refreshed the squad. I mean that both in terms of certain players moving on who might feel as though they should play for a Champions League side. The 2 5th-place finishes are massive achievements. The finishing 5th there, and in finishing 5th, you're finishing ahead of sides with massive budgets like Manchester United, conceivably, or Chelsea or Tottenham. To finish 5th, you've got to be finishing ahead of one of those sides. And that was really, really good. Now you're looking at them, and I think part of the reason why they found the start of this season hard, and now they found the restart hard, is that ultimately all these footballers, what's the purpose of playing for Leicester? And I think that you've got to have that feeling of refresh, of new challenge, even if the new challenge is just a new way to stay at the top. And I think they've lost that a little bit. And I actually thought it was interesting. Obviously, one player conceding 2 own goals will take the wind out of anyone's sails, but they were much the better side first half at Anfield, and then second half they don't come out with the tails up. They don't come out with sort of the idea of forget that, boys, let's go and deal with it. They looked to me like they were feeling a little bit sorry for themselves, and I think that's sort of just where they found themselves. So no, I don't think they'll go down. I mean, I'd be furious if they did, given the fact that our neighbours should not be given any succour from any other side at the moment. It's fair to say. So I don't think that they should be in a situation where they're going down, but I think there's every chance that they're exactly the sort of side who Brentford, for instance, could well finish above. Not least because everything at Brentford still pretty much feels like an adventure. Everyone feels as though they're moving forward. Everyone knows that, for instance, finishing 11th would be a massive achievement. Everyone's pulling in the same direction, and I think that that's the manager signed a new contract. He can see that he's got ongoing challenges there, and I think it's just an interesting comparison between these two sides. Now is that 11th for Leicester would feel as though they'd let the side down. 11th for Brentford would feel good, and guess what? The sides where 11th would feel good are the ones who've just got much more about them, much more pep, much more vigour. And I think that Leicester, in comparison, I feel as though, for instance, the game against Brentford is going to be a much bigger challenge for Liverpool than the game against Leicester, even though we went out of our way to make the game against Leicester as difficult as possible.
Yeah, I mean, and talking about your season, just coming back to that as well, I mean, your season in general, I mean, I think it'd be fair to say that you haven't had the best season in the fact, and this is in comparison, I mean, if it was us, we'd be delighted, what I'm saying, but in comparison to the seasons that you've had before, and also, even if you look at last season, and where you're actually trying to pit Man City for the title, this one you sort of kind of may feel that you have given up, or not given up, but you've missed the boat on a couple of occasions because of a couple of really, really, and I'm going to say it straight up, a little bit dodgy results, I mean, it started off with Fulham, which made me wanted to cry, that you couldn't beat Fulham in the first game of the season, but then since then you've had quite a few kind of like not great results, the Nottingham Forest, you've had, quite a few not results. Now, just talk to us quickly about your season and give it a marks out of 10 and what's gone wrong.
Marks out of 10 right now, it's got to sit as a, let's allow a 5 in that we're out of our Champions League group, so that's something, and it could have been worse. It feels lots of ways worse than played 16, 28 points. Again, we have won the last 4 league games. But, I mean, what's gone wrong is, I think there's a variety of factors. I think that last season we played every single football match it was possible to play, and I think that has taken a toll. I think that the players themselves were maybe a little bit deflated. I think that the manager, if he was, when he has been asked about it, he's felt as though they got pre-season wrong. And that they made a couple of mistakes there. They chose not to strengthen, especially in the middle of the park, but they chose not to strengthen that much the side. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I don't think it's that easy to strengthen Liverpool in a couple of ways. The manager's very much one who constantly says he doesn't want a massive squad, so I think Liverpool have always got one eye on if they can move someone on, great. But that said, I think that it would have been good to have got another young physical body in. I think the squad Less so now, the Gakpo signing is another example of us fixing it, but we had a bit of a problem where we had a lot of good prospects under 21, and we have a lot of senior pros over 29, and there's not that much in the gap in between. There is Trent Alexander-Arnold and Joe Gomez, there is Diogo Jota, there is Luis Diaz, but there wasn't that much in between, and not much of it in the middle of the park either. So we end up in this situation, I think, where things aren't quite right at the start of the season. The manager then also changes the shape and says that part of the reason why, he goes on to say, is that he felt everyone had got a bit stale. He's now sort of changed it back, and part of the fortune turning for us in October is when it changes back. And then there's just some shocking individual performances, or more accurately, shocking individual moments. Many of many besotted people may have watched Arsenal versus Liverpool, and don't get me wrong, Arsenal, play well on the day, but we give them 3 gifts. They win the game 3-2, and it's 3 gifts from Liverpool. Dreadfully timed, one in the first 90 seconds, one in the last 90 seconds of the first half, when actually it was 1-1 and we were on top in the game. And the passage of play that leads to the penalty, when Liverpool fail to clean the lines on 6 occasions and themselves bring the ball back into their own penalty box through Thiago Alcantara, was just amongst. In the end, the referee gives the penalty, and I'd like to think he just did it out of sheer decency. These people are desperate to concede this goal. Let's just make it easier for them. It was awful football, and there's been moments like that in a number of these games over the course of the season. So it's a strange sort of confluence of factors, but nothing's gone other than realistically the idea of being able to challenge for the league title. And trust me, if Manchester City have a stuttering season and we're not there to take advantage, having been runners up to them, breaking 90 points on 2 occasions, I'll be pretty furious about it. But what will be on that front. We've just got to now pull our bits back together, do what we've been doing, which is grind some results out, and see if we can look upwards. And right now we sit 4 points off Manchester United, who are in 4th. We're 6 points off Newcastle with a game in hand, who are in 3rd. We're even, if you want to go into it, 8 points off Manchester City in 2nd. So Tottenham, as we're recording this, look like they're going to drop some points. So if we win our game in hand on Tottenham, we go above them. But Tottenham just aren't very good. So we've got to look upwards now, take advantage of the fact that the good thing about being in a race for the top 4 is everyone plays everyone else all the time, so someone's got to drop points. So if we can hold our nerve, nothing should be sort of damaged by how bad we were prior to the World Cup, and especially in August, September and October. Nothing should be damaged by that, but it will still stick in the craw a little bit this season if they don't set themselves right pretty soon.
I've got to ask a question. I mean, have you given up? And I'm saying that because when I speak to you before, I find it really interesting, because you look at particular games, and if you don't pick up 3 points from that game, you basically say season's over. And I'm like, I mean, that's very alien to us, because we're like, keep going. But and it's cool. It's just, I see it for you, because you see yourselves having to basically battle against these teams at the top who are winning all the time. So if all of a sudden you lose against, or drop 2 points against Brentford, or top 3 points against Fulham or something like that, that kind of just completely ruins your flow in effect. So that's what I'm doing.
So I think part of why we struggled at the start of the season, especially when we weren't playing very well, is that when you've been used to going toe-to-toe against Man City, so the back end of last season, the run-in, we win practically every game, apart from when we go to Manchester City where we draw. So we draw at the Etihad, and we win, I think it's something like, of our other games, we win 8 of 9, say. So the last 10, we go to City, we draw, we have Tottenham at home, we draw, and we win the other 8. And when you go toe-to-toe with City, when we've gone toe-to-toe with City, and this is why it will genuinely be infuriating if City decide to act like a normal football team, you know that if you don't win, you've lost 2 points. That's it. That's the way it's been for us. When we won the league with 99 points, and when we won the league, we were played 27, won 26, drawn 1 at 1 point, because that was what we felt we had to do. You just had to win every single game, because the season before we were runners up with 97 points. 97 points is absolutely insane. It is dropping only 17 points over the course of a season. So we were runners up with 97 points. We've been runners up with 92 points. And when you go in with City, when we've been going with City there, anything but a victory, especially if you're not playing a side who are going to finish in the top 4, will feel like 2 points dropped. Now, we start this season, and I think that was really beginning to weigh on these Liverpool players, because you basically kick off 1-0 down. You basically kick off and you need a goal. And that's an away from home, you kick off and you need a goal. And that's not really the way football should be. You know, you shouldn't feel that sort of constant scoreboard pressure, but I think those players felt it, and we definitely felt it in the stands. So then when the opposition score, and we went through the spate of the opposition scoring first, then when the opposition score, you feel like you're 2-0 down. Because you've got to score two. To feel like you've just got par, to feel like you've got what you need to get out of the game, you now need to score two. And that's just exhausting. Genuinely, it's been exhausting going toe-to-toe with this Manchester City side. Listen, I want to be really clear about this. We're unbelievably fortunate to watch the brilliant footballers and the brilliant football team that we have and to challenge for the honours that we challenge for. But it has been, last season was, as someone going to the games and doing the job that I do, it was absolutely exhausting. And then it culminates in Paris, which was obviously horrible. Not so much for the on-the-pitch stuff. Sometimes you get people for the off-the-pitch stuff as well. And that also swept up some people who were attached to the players and to the training squad. None of that ended well. So this season, if you say I've given up, I've not given up on the idea of a really good season. I think Liverpool come in the European Cup. I think Liverpool should still finish from this position in the top four. I don't feel as though, for instance, we're going to overturn the current deficit between us and Arsenal. So I don't feel as though, it's currently sitting at 15 points. Let's allow, to be fair, there are still 22 games left to play and they've still got to come to Anfield. But I don't quite see a situation where, the form they're in, we're turning 15 points over on them across the remaining 22 games. But I still think we can have a really good season. I still think that we can finish third quite comfortably if we get our act together. So I haven't given up, but it's still that idea of, and the reason why at times in the past we've had that attitude of you can't afford to drop points in this set of places, is simply because you feel as though you're going up against a side in Pep Guardiola's Manchester City, and I think this will still happen to Arsenal this season, where they're more than capable of just basically playing 15 games and winning 14 of them. And when that's what you're up against, any game that you don't win will therefore feel as though you've dropped points, even if you've had a great game, even if it's been a really good occasion. The 3-3 at Brentford last season's a great example of it. And even the 3-3 in Brentford, when Liverpool make it 3-2, Klopp decides to throw another attacker on because he feels as though he needs one more goal to make this safe. He doesn't want to be hanging on for 3-2. He wants to go make it safe. Liverpool have a couple of opportunities. They don't take them, and guess what happens? Brentford go up the other end and make it 3-3. And it was a great game, and Brentford acquitted themselves really, really well. A draw is probably the fair result. And in years gone by, literally, I'm not going back to the 1980s. In the year 2007, everyone's able to shake hands and say that's a great point. But when you're trying to beat Manchester City to a league title, you end up being annoyed. And that, I don't want that to be the case. I think league titles, it'd be great if they were won with 86 points, 88 points. But if they're going to start going with 97s and 99s and 100s, then you've just got no wiggle room whatsoever, and it actually makes enjoying some games harder.
Yeah, no, I get that as well. So, obviously we're January now. Windows, It might be open or it might be opening very soon. I doubt it's going to open New Year's Day because I'm sure people are nursing hangovers on New Year's Day, so no windows opening. But in and around now, the window's opening. So I'm going to ask you, do you think there's anything that Liverpool need to do this window, or do they just have to just go with the flow and wait till summer?
They've gone with Gakpo, and a few Liverpool supporters don't quite understand spending money on the attack when you could be spending money on the midfield. I've got a bit of sympathy in that he hasn't got Diogo Jota until end of January, start of February, and I don't think he'll want to rush him back. I think he might think he rushed him back from the last injury. And Luis Diaz is out until March, and I think he feels as though he needs another attacking threat. Roberto Firmino, hopefully he'll be in contention for the game against Brentford. If not, he should be back pretty soon. But I think he feels as though he needs another attacking option in there. I'd love them to do a midfielder. I think they're going to need to do two minimum in this window and in the next one. But I think they are very committed to giving themselves every chance of signing Jude Bellingham. So I think that is the number one midfield sign that Liverpool want to make and they think they can make. I think this is an important thing. I think Liverpool really do feel as though they can come to an agreement with Dortmund and with the player. But they're not going to do that in January. That is going to be a summer job from a Liverpool point of view. So unless there's some sort of mad clause that we don't know about and that no one knows about, I just don't quite see how Liverpool come to an agreement with Dortmund, not least because Dortmund are also in the Champions League last 16, and they're not going to want to let one of their better players go in that instance. So I think that I'd like them to be proactive and creative in terms of looking for a midfielder, maybe take a couple of risks with the right profile. We've been using Harvey Elliott a little bit too much in the middle of the park for my liking, which sounds harsh because he's a young lad and he's obviously full of potential and promise. But he's just got himself a little bit exposed. I feel, across the last few games where I think sides have worked out. He's young, he's not particularly quick, he's not particularly big. Well, he's actually small as a footballer, and so I think he's just found himself in a little bit of bother. So I think that they could do with, there's nothing wrong with them going and signing a young midfield prospect, and there's nothing wrong with them going and signing someone who might take a bit of time to adapt. But I think that player could do with being able to be more of a defensive, physically imposing player than Elliott has been for us. So if they were to go and get one of them, then I'd be absolutely delighted. There's every chance that they just don't. They don't feel as though they can get someone who'll come in and add long term, because the one thing he won't want to do, the manager, is buy someone just for 5 months. They've sort of tried to do that a couple of times since he's been at Liverpool, and it's never worked. I think he'd rather have a player that he feels as though he's got 5 years with than the idea of a player he's got 5 months with. So I don't see them doing a stopgap or a short-term solution, a quick fix. So that's a bit of a shame for us. So yeah, ultimately I think we're looking at it only being Gakpo in this window, and the manager feeling as though he can make do amend between now and the summer, which is obviously a bit of a risk, but it's his risk to take. He's the gaffer.
Yeah, and looking and talking about the league, because obviously you still look at a top 4 place, but obviously the top 4 place, there's certain teams that you always talk about in those positions. You talked about Tottenham, you talked about Man United, you're talking about Arsenal, but there's a bit of a gate crasher has turned up this time as well, which has kind of upset the apple cart a little bit. Newcastle. Now I'm just wondering, because last time we played, Newcastle weren't even in the picture, last season. All of a sudden they've popped up there and they're causing all sorts of problems. Do they worry you?
In the long term, I think they should worry everyone connected to English football. But in the short term, I think they're playing really well. I think they're a good side. I think they're really well coached. I think he's got a really clear plan of what he's trying to achieve with the investments as it's gone in so far. But I still expect Liverpool, at the very least, to finish ahead of them. I think that I'm more concerned in the short term by Manchester United than I am about Newcastle. I feel as though the United manager, with all of their resource and all of the talent they had already amassed, has managed to pull them into relatively decent shape. I think Newcastle's next few are going to tell us an awful lot. I think the game week, as they now get referred to, that we're playing Brentford, Newcastle have got to go to Arsenal. And then off the back of that, they've got a couple of sort of slightly more straightforward ones to follow. But what's going to happen, I think, to this Newcastle side is they're going to start to be respected completely by the opposition. And what I mean by that is a lot of people are now going to go to St James's Park and think a draw is a good result. And a lot of people are going to be at home against Newcastle and think a draw is a good result. And that changes the way football works. As soon as that happens, it's tough to go to an away ground where the opposition are going to set up in a relatively deep block, say break us down, where the opposition fans are going to cheer a throw-in because it stops you from scoring. All of that's the thing that I think is in the post for Newcastle in the relatively near future, and that makes it all a little bit trickier and puts a little bit more onus on you to create. And I think that might be the point where it gets a little harder. But listen, they're there where they are at the minute on merit. We've got to bear that in mind, and they're going to be in this picture next season as well, no matter what happens this season. I think, though, as I say, over the long term, there's massive questions to be asked about where we do or don't want money in football to come from. If it was me, I don't feel as though the Newcastle takeover should have been allowed to proceed. I want to be really clear about this. I don't think that the current owners of Newcastle should be allowed to own a football club. I don't think the previous owner of Newcastle should have been allowed to own a football club either. And the sooner something like the Crouch Review is in, which argues for a licence around who should or shouldn't own a football club that has to be renewed on a regular basis, the sooner football will be in a better position. And I don't for 1 second begrudge the Newcastle supporters on this either. Let's be clear about this. Mike Ashley was amongst the worst people who could conceivably own a football club because of his behaviour within it, and what he did was he stripped an entire region of hope, and it was disgraceful. But ultimately, I think that football clubs as cultural institutions do need to be protected, and they need to be protected from having the wrong type of ownership. The game itself needs to be protected by from the wrong type of ownership. I would not want, and there's some talk at the minute Liverpool are for sale, and I would not want Liverpool to be owned by a state. I've got no interest in it. I really would not want that to happen. And if that did happen, it'd really make me question my relationship with Liverpool. And I'm able to do that from a position of relative security, in that I've watched Liverpool win a league, I've watched Liverpool win a European Cup, but I'd find it difficult if the sort of thing that has happened to Newcastle happened to Liverpool to continue with my sort of nature and level of support.
Yeah, and again, there's a bigger conversation. There's lots of conversations that we've had in and around Besotted Towers, as they say, with us lot as well. And like I said, we could take that conversation to another level, and maybe at another time, or maybe over a beer when we come up to Liverpool later on in the season, bank holiday weekend, coronation weekend actually. But we will move on from that. But talking about good owners, okay, not bad owners. Brentford, obviously owned by Matthew Benham, who we believe is a very good owner. Brentford fan through and through, loves the club himself. Now we've had a more steady season than we've had last season. I think it's fair to say we beat Manchester City, we thumped Manchester United. Actually, I've said that with a thump as well. We should have beaten Chelsea as well, and arguably we should have beaten Spurs a few days ago. And I mean, you mentioned the fact that Spurs aren't a very good team. It was a conversation we had on our podcast Pride of West London a couple of days ago as well. Very, very good clinical players Tottenham have got, but are they a good side? That's a big question mark, but it's interesting you said what you had to say. And also, we had a good win away at West Ham a couple of days ago as well. Can we play you every week? It's the third time we played West Ham and the third time we've beaten West Ham as well. Listen, what we're going to do is we're going to go back and listen to what the fans had to say straight after the game, the Brentford fans and the West Ham fans at the stadium in West Ham on Friday night.
Wasn't the best performance, but listen, take that all day long, wouldn't you? That was a great result. He ground it out well, worked hard in there. Mads Roerslev looking good, everything going in the right direction. Thomas Frank, he knows what we need.
I felt like, despite all of West Ham's chances, we looked in control, even though they had so many, shots. We looked defensively solid. I think that was just an overall really good Brentford performance. Really impressed with Roerslev tonight as well. Thought he had a really good game.
First half, I thought we were not confidently in control, but I thought we came out the better with the chances as they were. Yeah. And then the second half we controlled. So I thought it was a well-managed game. I thought in the Tottenham match, we were clearly dominant in the first half, but took a 1-goal lead. So I thought Frank made the adjustments this game that he didn't make against Tottenham.
Well, the first 10 minutes were a bit iffy, but after that, I thought we were always in control. They never really hurt us after that, did they? Once we got the 2 goals, I thought we were fairly in control, kept them out to the wings. Side Benrahma, loved the guy, but he never puts a cross in, and then I thought we were fairly comfortable.
The atmosphere was very poor, but all in all it was good. Didn't think we deserved to be 2-0 up at half time, but held the game out well in the second half.
Brentford won. It's the 50-50 today, and you wanted it more, and West Ham are just don't seem to be able to get it together at all at the moment. They punched above their weight with a very, very thin squad. They finished 6th and they got to the semis of a European competition. Now with all the new players, they're just not playing as a team. Had a big problem with Moyes ever since he came in the first time, even though without Moyes and Arnautovic, they probably would have been relegated a few seasons ago. The fans don't think Moyes has got the tactical nous to change the tactics, and he plays a very defensive game.
World Cup in the middle of a season is never good. And unfortunately we see players like Declan Rice and Paqueta go to the World Cup, and even Vlasic, and they come back after the World Cup and they're not working as a team. I don't know whether it's Moyes, we don't know. I can maybe see him being sacked in the near future. Unfortunately, Golden Sullivan won't allow it. We're not the same team we were last year, is the point. Unfortunately, Benrahma didn't do anything today that was noteworthy, but we all saw it on the pitch. He's there, and he's the one trying to create that spark, but he's putting ball in after ball, and there's no one heading that in the back of the net. And unfortunately, as simple as that, no one's on the end of it. Tonight, complete Moyes out moment. Last week we played Arsenal, and we watched it on TV. Absolutely dreadful. But the thing is, it's against top of the league, and I know as a Brentford fan, you might disagree with this, but we should be beating Brentford. I'm sorry.
Teams like Brentford, yeah.
With a team that did so well last season and the season before, we should be beating Brentford this season, and it hasn't happened. So I'm complete Moyes out at the moment.
Very good result, wasn't it? I think it was an odd first half, and that we allowed them possession. It seemed to be the tactic.
It was the tactic, wasn't it?
That don't challenge Rice. When he gets the ball, he seems to be a player who can...
Rice, baby.
Rice, baby. We know he can play the game. So, when he gets it, let him control it, let him spray the pass, and then...
Defend it,
because obviously they didn't think any of the West Ham players could do anything else. and it proved to be correct, didn't it?
They weren't that dissimilar to Tottenham in that they like banging balls in the box, but they had nothing on the deliveries were shit, and they didn't have anyone on the end of the crosses, unlike Tottenham. So we got 2-0 up and we held 2-0 quite comfortably, if we're honest.
But Ivan Toney,
in a weird way, it might give us clarity if he's out for a long period. I think there's talk of it being something to do with a knee or something. I don't. We ultimately, at this exact point in time, we don't know. But if he was out, say, for a long period, it would actually give us clarity. It might not be the clarity we want. If he was going to be out for a period of time, we may be rethinking how we're going to defend him.
Easiest away win in the Premier League. I mean, I was struggling to find an easier away win. I thought, could it have been Man City? No.
Wolves?
Could have been Wolves, possibly. But this was just very, very straightforward. It almost reminded me of some of those away wins in the Championship under Warburton, going to Reading away in a big stadium with no atmosphere and just fucking turning them over. It was quality.
It's lovely to win there. I'm delighted that we finished the year off with 3 points. Unbeaten over the festive period. Unbeaten since coming back after Project Restart. Happy days, obviously concerned about Tony, but tonight let's just enjoy the win. And we wrap the year off with a 3 points at the Taxpayer Stadium. Happy days.
So there you go, the fans straight after that game, and we had a good night actually after that. It's got to be said. And the laugh is that can we play you every week? We were singing that to West Ham. Can we play you every week? But the irony is that we're playing them again next Saturday in the FA Cup, so we are actually playing them every week. So the West Ham fans are probably going, "Oh my God, no, not again." But anyway, just coming back to you, Neil. I mean, your thoughts on Brentford, just overall and just the season.
I think that looks like another really, really strong season. Played 23 points on the board, exceptionally difficult to beat, especially at home. As far as I'm concerned, it's clearly a good side with a real sense of plan and purpose, and it's almost like and I don't mean this to be disparaging. I think that there's been a number of sides. If you look back across the entirety of football, go back through my lifetime, certainly since 1980, you've got sides who get promoted and who turn up and who become almost like their own individual challenge because they've got a really clear way of playing and they've got a really clear formula for success. And then from there, you've got to try and find a way to solve the puzzle that team, that club becomes. And I think that the sides who this season have obviously, because Brentford have lost at least 4 games, have managed to solve that puzzle. But I think on the whole, with only 4 defeats in the 17 games that Brentford have played, it's crystal clear that this is a difficult puzzle to solve. And that's huge credit, obviously, to everyone at the club, from the owner right the way down to the manager, his coaching staff, but the players themselves as well. And I'm very impressed from afar with what Brentford have done, and I don't quite see the point at which it necessarily stops. I think the idea of consistently having new challenges and new benchmarks to pass is the thing that everyone attached to Brentford needs to make sure is there. But whilst this situation is ongoing, I think that, Brentford are one of the most impressive clubs in the division, and I think it's amongst the toughest away games you can have in the division. Certainly amongst the toughest away games you can have outside of the classic top 6. And from there, any victory at Brentford, if any win Liverpool managed to get on the 2nd, will feel absolutely enormous. It really will. And that, I think, is actually a testament to how well Brentford have done.
Yeah, and interestingly, and I'll say that the team that you're going to play on Monday, I mean, assuming that, there's no injuries or anything like that, but in general, the team you're going to play is actually going to be very similar to the team last season, because even though we picked up some players in the summer, the main players that you're going to see are different is Ben Mee, as you're going to hear him as well, which we got on a free from Burnley as well, because Dalsgaard, we picked up Dalsgaard, but he's been on and off, and he hasn't been featuring. He's just been playing bit parts for Brentford as well. Keane Potter as well, we picked up from Hull as well. He's still kind of we're trying to sort of get him into the frame, so he's not really featuring as much. Aaron Hickey, who we got from Bologna as well, he's got injured, so we haven't got him in defence as well. So pretty much the players that we've got, from last season are the players that are doing what they're doing at the moment now. And it's almost like they've learned from last season and they've gelled together much more last season, which in a way is quite a good thing. I mean, we're currently top 10. Again, I'm saying this at the moment now because I haven't seen there's games being played as we speak, but we're still currently top 10. We talked about Brentford and you say, one of the toughest teams to play. I mean, it's interesting because I like sitting down and listening to your sort of analytical taking apart of football matches. I mean, where do you see, just briefly, our strengths and maybe where our weaknesses are?
I think that you're hugely physically imposing, and I think that makes a difference, and it's one of the things that makes this side really difficult to beat. And I think that's something which Liverpool are going to have to be really conscious of. Really, really conscious. Every single Brentford player, I feel as though is able to be very, very impressive. I think there's clear. One of the things that when I work through the numbers that always sticks out with Brentford is Brentford are very, very good at creating the best possible opportunities for themselves, and are very, very good at stopping your opportunities from being anything particularly special. And that is something which is a very underrated trait in football. It somewhat makes a little bit of a fool of the basic metric around, for instance, expected goals, because sides can have relatively high expected goals against Brentford, but it tends to be from a number of chances that are not good chances. And Brentford themselves may not create 10 chances in a game, but if they create 6, there's every chance that 4 of them are chances that you can reasonably expect to see a side stick into the back of the net. And I think that's the trick of this Brentford side, and I think it's the trick of the manager. I think that'll go right the way through the football organisation, is to maximise opportunities. And maximising opportunities doesn't just mean maximise the number of opportunities, it's all about the quality, and it's minimise the quality for opponents. Brentford know that in every game, effectively, unless they come up against a side that's in a really bad way, the opposition are going to, at some point, dominate the ball for a period, and at some point create opportunities around the 18-yard box. But what Brentford are very good at is tempting the opposition into creating the type of opportunities Brentford are very happy to deal with. And that's, I think, something that sides have got to have a plan about and against and around. But that takes mature footballers to do that. And there's a few sides who fall into Brentford's traps. I think it is really interesting the record that you've got against West Ham, because I think that what the excellence of the West Ham manager, who has been excellent recently, but what he's very, very good at is setting a side up to play a certain way and maximising the potential of that. What he has always appeared to be less good at is fine-tuning that game by game or even within games. And so it's no surprise to me that Brentford are able to set up in a way that minimises West Ham's capabilities. And I think that he's at his best, Moyes, as a manager, when he's got the sort of players who suit the idea of repetition in approach. That's when it suits him down to the ground. When he's got more variation, I think he always finds it a little bit harder. And that's, I think, Liverpool will need to find variation against Brentford. They need to have 100 ways to score a goal, not just one. They need to not fall into Brentford's trap in terms of ending up shooting from distance or just pumping crosses into the box. And if they can do that, then they can create some opportunities. But simultaneously, they need to be really, really well aware of the threat that Brentford pose going the other way, the threat that Brentford pose from set pieces as well.
I mean, it's interesting you say that as well. I mean, if you're talking about creating high quality chances as well, I mean, if in the Justice League, they call it, this is the table based on sort of creating high opportunity chances, the XG table as it is. Manchester City are at the top, Arsenal, Newcastle, but then Liverpool are 4th and Brentford are actually 5th. And Liverpool, your position in that table, you're 4th, but your actual position is 6th. So you kind of you're slightly underperforming. With Brentford, we're one place below you, but we're 10th place at the moment now, which shows that we're actually massively underperforming, which means that, again, it's being able to convert those chances. You are converting them chances much better than what we are in the scenario. So we create the chances, but we need to be better at actually putting them in the back of the net, because that's actually going to get us where we are, which is, like I said to you, which may happen on Monday, and it may not happen on Monday. We'll see. Talking about creating chances and putting them into the back of the net, obviously for Brentford, we've got a number of players, but Ivan Toney is a player who is very key to how he play. He works very hard all over the pitch. He creates opportunities. He puts the ball in the back of the net. He defends. He does everything. Okay, he came off against West Ham on a stretcher. It looked really bad. Brentford fans were very, very worried after the game. It was a main point of conversation in the pubs afterwards in Hackney Wick as we went to after the game. And like I said to you, because he actually got wheeled off on one of those, I think it was one of those sort of kind of, they wheeled him on, the trolley came on and the tractor came on, they put him on the stretcher and then they wheeled him off. And also that it took quite a while as well, because he fell, and it felt like 5, 6, 7 minutes that the old stretcher was on for. I think it was an injury time, and we felt the worst about Ivan Toney. We thought, God, if he's out 2 2 months? Is he out for 3 months? And then we've obviously got the situation which he is going to possibly have to go to an FA tribunal as well, which may put him out for a longer time. We thought maybe this is the last we've seen of Ivan Toney for quite a while. But then we got a message. He tweeted an hour and a half afterwards saying, don't worry, I won't be out for too long. And then Thomas Frank in his press conference today said, it's not too bad. It's a bit of a twingy muscle thing. I'm not quite sure what the problem is. He might play against Liverpool. So Ivan Toney actually may be there to cause a few problems on Monday, which has really surprised the Brentford fans. Ivan Toney, I know you've talked about it before, but him and his teammates, how much damage can they cause Liverpool on Monday?
Loads. Tony's a really good player. Really, really good player. I thought he was unfortunate not to go to the World Cup. I do wonder if the wider circumstances have sort of fed into that. But what he's got with Mbeumo is a really good understanding, and they're exceptionally difficult to play against. The movement behind them, around them, works very, very well. Everyone knows Tony's strengths are not just the idea he's going to stick it in the back of the net, or for that matter, he's just going to win a few headers. Such a clever player, such a good touch, so good at bringing his teammates into play. So yeah, loads. I'm expecting Liverpool to change at the back. I think that in part because of Toney, but I think also in part because of the wider physical threat that Brentford pose. I think that Liverpool will go with Ibu Konate over Joel Matip next to Virgil van Dijk in there as well. If it wasn't for the fact that he was excellent defensively against Leicester, I might have expected Liverpool to consider Joe Gomez at right back ahead of Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think that the manager will want to give Arnold the chance to build on that performance, and would view perhaps playing Gomez as a little bit of a backward step. But it wouldn't surprise me if he still does that, in part because, again, of the physical and the set-piece prowess of this Brentford side, and especially the all-round ability of that front two, which it's likely to be. It's interesting, Mbeumo only gets the hour also against West Ham, which suggests to me that Frank will want to run him for the 90 against Liverpool as well in there. And then, all the way through there, I think that Liverpool may not make all that many more changes. I think they'd be desperate to get Roberto Firmino back if he's fit, and I think Naby Keita comes in for Harvey Elliott possibly. Fabinho might come in as well. He only missed the game against Leicester because of his wife having a baby. So that baby's been had. That's done. So we can crack on now. So I think Fabinho comes back in as well. Apart from that, I'd expect Salah to start. I think Nunez starts and will pose Brentford a unique set of problems. He really, really will. I look forward to watching him. You'll be amazed what he is like when you get to see him in the flesh. And then there's apart from that, I think that, as I say, I think Thiago will start. I think if Robertson's fit, he went off with a bit of an injury in the end. I was saying there won't be that many changes. I'm actually listing a few now that I think about it. Shimmercast may well start in place of Robertson because he went off with a dead leg for the game against Leicester, and I don't think Liverpool will want to take the risk. So yeah, I think that's where the Liverpool side is currently around fitness. And I think that Konate coming in will be in part because of the threat posed by Toney and Mbeumo.
Right, okay, so and just talking about the game, because obviously Liverpool fans coming down, like I said to you, some of you have been to Brentford before, some of you have never been before. The good thing about it is that, you can drink anywhere, you can go anywhere you want to, you can wear your colours, there's no problems. Anywhere you want to go, you come down, you're going to be completely and utterly welcome. You come down to our boozer, which is the Globe as well. We have some drinks down there as well, but then also there's lots of pubs in and around Kew Bridge. You can go around there, you can go down the river on Strand of the Green. There's loads of pubs down there, pubs over the river in Kew, but also be a little bit more adventurous. Come over into Brentford, old school Brentford, because all the pubs that are there are still serving and they're still busy and they're good vibes. The Globe, the Nelson, even the Black Dog. There's loads of places to go. Get down there early, get there at 11, and then and basically crawl around, do 25 pubs before you get to the game. You'll have a really good time. And like I said to you, if you see me, just come up and we could chink glasses before the match, as we say. But just got to ask you the question, of course, Neil. The final question for today. You have to give me a score prediction.
I'm going to just err on the side of Brentford 1, Liverpool 2. I think it's going to be a really, really difficult game for Liverpool. It wouldn't surprise me if it ends up in a draw. I just feel at the minute a draw, until we can get properly back into this top four picture, and by that I almost mean in the top four, I think a draw just wouldn't quite feel like enough for us, and I think that we'll be going all out. I think if we had 5 more points, I think we might be a bit more relaxed vis-a-vis the idea of maybe just taking a point at Brentford and wanting not to lose. I think it would obviously help us if Toney doesn't start, but if he does, he does, and Liverpool will have to deal with that. I think it'll need a really good Liverpool performance, amongst our best away performances of the season. But even though we were dreadful against Leicester, and we really were, I feel as though there's a little bit of momentum around this Liverpool side at the minute. So I'm going to just go for 2-1 Liverpool, but 1-1 or 2-2 or even 3-3 like last season genuinely wouldn't come as a surprise to me.
Okay, and I've got to go for put my neck on the line here as well. I'm going to go 2-1 to the mighty Bees as well, because I feel that
excellent.
We've got to get something in it, and it's New Year, new cheer, as they say. But anyway, listen, Neil, it's been great chatting to you. Thanks a lot for taking time out to speak to Besotted. Don't forget you can catch us on prideofwest.london. Don't tell us where they can find your Anfield Wrap as well.
Yeah, just the AnfieldWrap.com or download the app or whatever it takes. We've done a really good documentary about Jurgen Klopp, part 1 of which is on YouTube, on our YouTube channel there. I think it's got relevance for any football supporter, to be honest with you. Part 3 is much more focused, for instance, on a couple of adventures he has in Mainz rather than the ones at Liverpool or even Dortmund. But yeah, it's really, really good work, and it's what fan media can do at its very best, and we're all very proud of it indeed. That's good.
That sounds good as well. You did something with the FSA as well. You did a little documentary with them as well, didn't you? As well, recently with Amanda Jacks as well.
Oh yes, we did something on the dark side of football with Gareth. That came out back in July. So that's a little tricky to find out, but it was out for free. So if you go to our Audio Boom page for that, it's about the darker side of football, and we were very pleased to work with Amanda on it.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, Neil. Great chatting to you, like I said to you. I'll catch up with you over the weekend. I mean, I'm all over the place now because I don't even know what.
No one knows what day it is, Billy. No one knows what day it is.
Well, we'll catch up with you after the match, and like I said to you, have a great day on Monday, but not a brilliant day, as we say. I had to say that, but anyway, nice one, Neil. Thanks a lot, man.
Take it easy.